How does attitude determine altitude?
I think it fully determines altitude. I think the attitude that you have when you go into something determines how you're going to do something, how far it's going to go. There's hundreds of examples where I've seen if I've gone in with a negative attitude, you absorb negative energy back. You get whatever you put out there in your attitude, you're going to get back. And when I go with a positive attitude, then you get that energy and that flow to make something happen.
Give me an example of both.
Okay, so on the positive side, going with when I was working for Virgin Mobile in Australia, and I knew I wanted to make a life change. I knew I wanted to do something that wasn't just going to be the corporate sector. Mm-hmm. And so rather than being fearful of change and being worried about going to my boss and saying, I want to make this change, I want to do something different, I embraced that and got really positive and excited about what the potential could be. So it took a while to get to that journey and get away from the fear of leaving a good job. I'd been there for 5 years with Virgin Mobile, and I was excited about the work, but getting over that fear and allowing myself to think there's going to be something exciting on the other side, and starting to really step back and individually thinking about what makes me tick and what do I want to do in this next role, and taking the time to do that with a positive attitude rather than a fearful one. And what ended up happening because of that was I resigned, but when I resigned, they said, oh, well, we want to start up this foundation. And I ended up having the best opportunity of my life to set up a foundation within the Virgin Group with Richard and the Virgin family. But it was only because I personally took that risk and got away from the fear and had a positive attitude about what could be next in my life, what could be that exciting next step, and took the risk to resign, and then this opportunity opened itself. And I never would have been flying as high in terms of how passionate I am about my work right now if I'd stayed and worked in that mobile phone company. Mm-hmm. So I think that was an example of where I put a positive attitude on. I think probably on the negative context, I think there's been times when I get so completely passionate about a business changing the way they do business that I want it all to happen at one time, and then have gotten frustrated when it hasn't happened, rather than stepped back and learned the art of patience. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as that has happened, and there's been multiple times in my career where that's happened, all the negative energy spins, because people don't want to work with me then. They don't want to come alongside and figure out how we can drive change. Instead, what happens is you get negative attitude crushing your altitude because they don't understand what you're talking about, and they resist. And often that's because I do get so excited and want to do something that's very large scale immediately, and get so excited about the big possibility, not thinking about how do I take these people on the journey of small steps along the way and have joy in every one of those steps, rather than have this collision.
It takes time, doesn't it? And we have to be patient sometimes to let other people catch up with the good ideas that we've had.
Yeah, it's patience, and I think it's also how you react to other people's negative attitude is a big part of it, and not letting yourself get into that negative space. I remember a time when by accident someone had sent me an email that was about me, and it was very negative, and I got it, and I was all upset about it, and allowed this to become something larger than it was. And we had an elders meeting the next day, and I had this conversation with Archbishop Tutu, and I said, this has happened, and he just laughed at me, and he said, Jean, you know how many times in life someone's going to put their negative energy on you, and what you need to do is laugh and realize that that's their story, that's not your story, and they're doing that probably because they're in a bad space, and you need to have empathy for them and embrace them and make sure that you learn from them and learn from why they had that perception. And it was just so beautiful seeing this coming from a man who had been living in a country where he was being put down every day, and his ability to laugh about it. So for me, it just seemed totally silly and irrelevant after that to think that I got so upset about this one issue.
But it's interesting, isn't it, that when you got irritated and frustrated that change wasn't happening fast enough in the companies that you were advising, they got irritated and frustrated with you, you manifested. When you had a positive attitude, positive things happened.
Absolutely, and that definitely, every time, again and again, you see that if you have that positive attitude, you'll get that back.